If you are here with us right now, wherever you are in the United States or elsewhere, you're here for our IA Safety Awareness Workshop with our guest speaker, Andres Ramirez. He is the Director of Partnerships from IA Safety Awareness Foundation. He will be sharing more information about how you can get in contact with him. But before we get into the presentation, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Catherine Van Henley. I am with DELN, Digital Equity Learning Network. We are based out of Seattle, King County. Um, and though we focus on serving this region, we have invited people from across the US and elsewhere. If you're outside of the US, please put your location in the chat. I'd love to know where you're joining us from. And I do want to also note that this meeting is being recorded so that we're able to share it out next week after we clean it up and edit it a bit. All right. Okay, so our agenda today, we're going to go over a little bit more about DELN, an intro here, some updates, and then we will go into our presentation with Andres. And he will let you know if he wants a Q&A during the presentation or after, so just go ahead and follow his direction there. Digital Equity Learning Network. We are a cross-sector coalition that works to advance digital equity and inclusion in King County. It's in the Seattle area of Washington State. Our mission is to leverage collective knowledge and resources to advocate for digital equity, share best practices, and to build system capacity towards digital inclusion, towards inclusion in the digital world. The things we do is we advocate for funding, we offer learning and professional development, we develop and curate up-to-date resources, and we convene practitioners across the digital access, device, and literacy ecosystem. That's a bit about DELN. I'm going to also share some ways you can get in contact with me and follow our work here on LinkedIn and on the listserv. I did want to share some updates here. I hope you can see the screen here. If you are in the Seattle, King County, or Washington State area, please join us on October 8th. We will be having an in-person only event, that our second Gathering for Access and Equity event. This year, we will be holding at the Seattle Public Library, the Central Library location. I will also share the link for registration there if you are local and have not been able to register yet. This is during the Digital Inclusion Week, and we will be happy to have you. We'll be having a keynote speaker. We'll be having some breakout rooms, and also AI Safety Awareness Project will also be presenting there as well in person if you'd like to join that workshop, if you like what you hear here. Yeah, it's a day-long event. We'll be having a breakfast and lunch there as well. So we hope to see you if you are able to join. And also at that event, we will be hosting a electronics recycling drive in partnership with PCs for People. So if you are able to attend, please bring any old technology for donation. There's a list of accepted types of electronics there. I'm going to note here that they do not accept right now household appliances. This includes microwaves, refrigerators, and vacuums. But I doubt most of our attendees would be showing up with those, but that's just a note. We're looking for desktops, laptops, phones, TVs and monitors, computer accessories, printers. We'll have a collection bin at the event there. And then on the national stage, I wanted to remind everyone here, if you have not already registered for Net Inclusion, it's happening in Chicago, February 3rd through 5th of next year. I will share the link for more information if you're looking for it, and I will be in attendance there. DELN will be in attendance, and I hope to see you there as well. Okay, do I have any questions? I haven't been checking the chat here. Let me see. Okay, we're putting our locations in there. Okay, nothing yet, I don't see. Okay, all right. Well, I think now we're getting into the reason why you came today. I wanted to go ahead and introduce Andres from AI Safety Awareness Project, and he will be presenting on the state of AI safety today and what you can do as an individual and within your community to protect yourself and others. So I'm going to ask Andres to come on camera if you're not already. I'll go ahead and stop my screen share, and you can go ahead and share yours.
Sounds good. Thank you, Catherine. And thank you so much for inviting me and having me here. Thank you, everyone, for giving me a bit of time today to chat about AI safety and how it affects how it intersects with digital equity. So I'll share a little bit about myself before I get started in the presentation. Moved into AI safety full time about 7 months ago. Before then, I was in sales, believe it or not, in tech sales and worked across a number of startups. AI safety is in a very interesting spot right now where there, and I apologize for like the camera mismatch. I put my second screen up to help with my posture. I don't know if it's helping, but I know it looks a little weird, so I apologize. I keep, looking up. But AI safety is in a really interesting position right now, simply because there's a ton of research being done. Not enough, but there's a lot of research being done in AI safety. And we'll talk about the different pillars of what that looks like. There's a ton of legal concerns being figured out about AI safety as well. But something that's sorely lacking, and this is the gap that AI Safety Awareness Project and myself are trying to plug, is that there is very little communication to the public in regards to AI safety concerns, right? People tend to fall into two different categories. One is both are quite extreme. So one is, AI is really stupid. It's not going to affect us. Anything that is anyone that says that AI is very good is just trying to sell you something, right? And then there's the other one, of course, which is like AI is going to kill us all, right? So where's the truth? Where do we fall on that? We'll be going into that a little bit. Of course, it's a very nuanced view. But just to be clear, I know I mentioned that I used to be on the selling side. I don't sell anything anymore. I do these pro bono. So if you are interested in getting a workshop up and running or getting trained up to present things like this to your own communities, that is a massive pillar of ours. I'm working with Chicago Public Library. I'm based in Chicago, working with Seattle Public Library. We're working with police departments. We're working with churches. We're working with AARP. All of this is pro bono. Simply, the goal is just to make sure that people are educated about AI safety. So I'll leave my email and my LinkedIn in the chat there. If you want to get in touch, even if you just want to ask me a question or two, that's totally fine. Feel free to reach out. All right, without further ado, let's get into the presentation. And while I pull this up, the main goal of educating the public, we believe, is first of all, there's intrinsic value in educating the public about something that will most definitely affect them, number one. And then number two, we hope that we can reach a point where the baseline education on AI is so great that it actually spurs some action, spurs some movement. It's very important to note that we don't advocate for any sort of policy. We are there to educate and give people and of course, you all, the toolkit to think through AI. But we're not here to tell you what you should think, right? We're here to just educate you on the current state of things and where things might be going. So as I present this information, I would love to get your guys' feedback on, does this seem right to you? Like where are places that you can push back, right? Where are things that you can challenge me on if you'd like, and we can have like an open discussion. The thing about forecasting, the thing about predicting the future is that is not an exact science, right? All we can do is try to follow the breadcrumbs. So I'll try to keep the chat open, but it might be a little bit difficult for me to do so. Feel free, as far as questions go, etc., feel free to hold on to them after each section, as you'll see here. After each section, we'll actually talk about the questions that you have. Okay. So we'll do a very brief intro to AI and then talk about existing predictions. Then we're going to do a live demonstration on short-term harm, so how people are getting scammed and frauded through AI today. And then we're going to open it up for forecasting questions. So we're all going to try to protect the future. Again, no wrong or right answers here. It's more so just to get an understanding of what things might look like. And then finally, what can we all do together as far as action steps? I know this has been a pretty long preamble, but the last thing I'll mention is this directly intersects with digital equity because what we're seeing is that if AI continues on the pace that it's on, digital equity will be severely threatened, right? There is major risk of power centralization through AI, and we'll talk about what that risk might look like. There is also, even if AI does not keep developing, right? If we just have AI, like we've already reached the limit, let's say, there's already a huge concern about how it can be manipulated for malicious purposes, right? What happens when a president says that they want to remove DEI or they want to remove anything about the climate crisis from a large language model like ChatGPT? What happens when people start relying on that model for the majority of their information? It's a basically a destruction of equity, right? Okay, so let's talk about what is artificial intelligence. And it's important to note that AI has been around for quite a long time. It has been around since the 1940s and 1950s. So a thermostat can actually be considered AI because it is mimicking human intelligence, right? It's a very basic form of intelligence. So balancing the temperature, right? But nonetheless, it is a mimicking that part of your brain, right? Then we have, of course, AIs that mimic game theory and actually mimic performances at chess. So back in 1997, we have the release of Deep Blue that actually started beating chess grandmasters, right? Now, I want you guys to think through like chess AI and something like ChatGPT are very, very different types of AI, right? One huge difference is that has a very finite goal. Be good at chess. Be the best that you can be at chess. One also has very limited parameters. When you think of a chessboard, you have a limited number of spaces. You have a limited number of moves. You have a limited number of pieces. And even if you're taking into consideration what your opposition might do, so again, game theory, it's still relatively limited compared to something like ChatGPT. ChatGPT, if I can get like some raises of the hand, some or like emoji or something, if you've used it or not. For those that are not aware, ChatGPT is a wrapper basically a user interface that you can jump onto and interact with as you would basically a human. It feels like you are chatting with a human, right? Um, but the main thing that I'm trying to get across here that it's very general. I can go on there and I can ask it for a recipe with the ingredients that I have for dinner tonight, or I can go on there and ask it to grade my resume if I'm applying for a job, or I can go on there and ask and tell like I'm looking to buy a motorcycle. I'm going to ask it what are the 7 things I should look for when I'm buying a used motorcycle. And so it's very, very general. You can't do that with the chess bot. So the difference there is one is narrow AI or tool AI, so very finite and relatively small parameters. The other one is closer to artificial general intelligence. Notice that I said closer to, it is not artificial general intelligence. Um, it is on the way there. For artificial general intelligence, there has to also be a threshold of capacity and autonomy. And here is where we define AGI. And it's very important to note that there is no one definition. Even Anthropic, OpenAI, XAI, uh, they all define it in different ways. But largely, the overlap seems to be AI that is as good or better than most humans at most things. AI that's as good or better than most humans at most things. Um, so the question that I want you guys to consider in the back of your head is how would we deal with that? If you think of like, I don't know if there's any history buffs in the call, but if you think of like, or science buffs, even if you think of the history of mankind, of our species, when have we ever dealt with something that is better than us in most things that we do, right? In most cognitive tasks? Not ever. So this is quite unprecedented, and it's true. This is not like a um, this is not like written in stone will happen. It's totally possible that it doesn't. It's totally possible we reach um, cognitive capacity through chips, right? And the hardware is just not there. It's totally possible that the supply lines of trade are disrupted and that slows down or completely eliminates the possibility of something like AGI. But it's important to know that the CEOs, the people who have what we call contextual awareness, they know the space and they know where the space is headed simply because they're the ones setting the pace, are talking about AGI quite constantly. So let's listen to what Sam Altman has to say about AGI. Catherine, if you could let me know if you can hear this audio.
Oh, no, sorry, I was thumbsing up that I heard you.
No?
We don't hear the audio. I wonder if you can do share audio. I know how to do that on
Yeah.
Teams. I just,
Yeah, let me see how I can do that. Ah, share sound. Yep. All right, we should be good there. Oh man. Give me 1 second. Asking me to okay.
AGI is
Can you hear that?
basically the equivalent of a median human that you could hire as a coworker. And then they could say do anything that you'd be happy with a remote coworker doing, like just behind a computer, which includes learning how to go be a doctor, learning how to go be a very competent coder. Like there's a lot of stuff that a median human is capable of getting good at. And I think one of the skills of an AGI is not any particular milestone, but the meta skill of learning to figure things out and that it can go decide to get good at whatever you need.
The meta skill of learning how to figure things out, right? I want you guys to hold on to that as well, because we're going to talk about what that looks like when something knows how to get better and starts learning by itself. Here's another video, Google DeepMind CEO talking about AGI.
What keeps you up at night?
For me, it's this question of international standards and cooperation, and also not just between countries, but also between companies, as we get, and researchers, as we get towards the final steps of AGI. And I think we're on the cusp of that. Maybe we're 5 to 10 years out. Some people say shorter. I wouldn't be surprised. It's sort of like a probability distribution, but it's.
Yep. Okay. So 5 to 10 years out, right? In terms of AGI. Now, should we believe everything these people say? Probably not. And we'll get into that a little bit, but I'm just giving you guys an idea of how publicly these folks are talking about where they want to go, right? This is the CEO of DeepMind, who says, I am very nervous about international collaboration in regards to AI safety. Again, we'll talk a little bit about this, but it's important to try to read between the lines when folks are talking about AGI. And then finally, we have Dario Amodei, CEO of Anthropic.
AGI has never been a well-defined term for me. I've always thought of it as a marketing term, but the way I think about it is at some point we're going to get to AI systems that are better than almost all humans at almost all tasks. The term I've used for it in an essay I recently wrote is a country of geniuses in a data center. It's a sort of evocative phrase for all the power and all the positive things and all of the potential negative things. That's the thing that I think we are quite likely to get in the next 2 or 3 years. I don't know exactly when, but the things that I've seen inside Anthropic and out of it over the last few months lead me to believe that we are on the trajectory.
All right. So before I move to the next slide, can I get some folks off mic if you don't mind? Tell me, why should we take their words with a grain of salt? And how big should that grain of salt be?
There's usually money involved here. There's stakes,
Hmm.
financial stakes.
Hmm. There's financial stakes, yeah. So financial incentives, right? And really, that's the big one. If you are a CEO of a company that stands to disrupt the entirety of society with something that is better than humans at most things, you probably A, want your company to get there as fast as possible. That's $1 trillion market for you. And B, you probably want to get on all the rooftops and scream, hey, this technology is going to change everything and it's coming, right? So I'm not here to say this is all true because Dario said it and Sam Altman said it, right? But it's important to note that the folks, again, who are captaining the ship, so to speak, this is their intended goal. Will we get there? Maybe, maybe not, but this is their intended goal. And if we do reach a level of AGI, and maybe even less than AGI, it will have massive ramifications for all of our communities. And that's why we're talking here today, to talk about that short-term risk, scam and fraud, which we'll talk about in more detail, but then also that long-term risk. A couple more quotes here, but I won't stick on this note for too long. Just to note that Sam Altman here says, we may see the first AI agents join the workforce and materially change the output of companies in 2025. This is just to show that as smart and as strategic and et cetera as these guys may be, they get things wrong too, right? So what did he get wrong here? Well, AI agents are definitely joining the workforce. Agentic systems are starting to starting to have jobs, right? But materially changing the output of companies is not something that has happened yet. As in, there is no research that says companies are actually better off because of using AI agents. So again, very, very tricky to predict the future. This goes back to that insider knowledge and contextual awareness that I mentioned. This is the main crux of our work. How do we give the public the same contextual knowledge as much as possible that Sam Altman has? How do we make sure they know where the public knows where AI might be headed? Because it might get here faster than we think. Because from what we've seen, AI's developed very, very quickly, much faster than your typical technological progress. In fact, if we look at some videos, we'll see that in 2023, the top line AI model was spitting out this monstrosity. And if you see this and you're a lawmaker, you probably think this is nothing to worry about, right? And that's what we're seeing with legislation. That's what we're seeing with governance. It's all addressing current state. It's not addressing future state. Why is it important to address future state? Because in less than 2 years, in just over 24 months, this was what
a girl told me we're made of prompts. Like, seriously, dude, you're saying the only thing standing between me and $1 billion is some random text?
Honestly, the biggest red flag is when the guy believes in the prompt theory. Like, really? We came from prompts? Wake up, man.
You want to convince me that this perfect creation behind me is the result of ones and zeros? A binary code and nothing more? It makes no sense.
Imagine you're in the middle of a nice date with a handsome man and then he brings up the prompt theory. Yuck. We just can't have nice things.
We're not prompts! We're not prompts!
Where is the prompt writer to save you from me? Where is he?
You still believe we're made of prompts?
Anyone who tells you we're just ones and zeros is delusional. If that's all we are, then why does it hurt when we lose someone?
Vote for me and I'll ban the prompt theory from schools. There's no place for that nonsense in our lives.
For spreading the false theory that we are nothing but ones and zeros, this court sentences you to 12 years in federal custody.
I don't need some prompt god whispering in.
Okay, this video gives me a stomachache, so I'll pause it there. But this just goes to show again how quickly AI has been developed. And number one, and then also number two, it's not just text, right? And it's not just thinking and reasoning. It's also multimodal. It's images, it's videos. Going back to my earlier point about a politician watching this video.
A girl told me we're made of prompts.
Watching this video versus a politician watching this video, you might understand how they might have a different reaction in regards to urgency to the problem. But again, this is already out. So what we have to try to do is try to make legislation, try to build governance, specifically in regarding digital equity, that fits where the ball might be in 6, 9 months or a year, instead of where the ball is today.
A girl told me we're made of prompts.
So what is AI safety? We talked about AI, we talked about AGI, we talked about how quickly AI has been developed. Well, we focus on short-term, medium-term, and long-term. Short-term is exacerbating societal risks that exist already. Think of bias. Think of all the horrible isms you can think of. What happens when they are codified in an AI system that has zero transparency and very, very little accountability, right? For a very blunt example, when a police officer does not act in accordance with the standards that they set for themselves, there is presumably accountability channels, right? You know exactly what to do, badge number, etc. What happens if you are affected by an AI? Who do you turn to? How will you know? And again, just reminding myself who's on this call, how do your communities know? Should they know? We think so. There should be some sort of transparency governance in AI, and making sure that if things go wrong, people have somewhere to turn to, and it's not just, well, I got turned down by this housing application because an AI filtered me out. Then we have the social and economic impacts. So what happens if AI takes just 5% of jobs? Just 5%, it would be absolutely massive, right? But it might take 10, it might take 20% based off of some predictions of white collar work. How does that affect schools? How does AI affect going to the doctor? Will the doctor then just be a facilitator of AI? When I go to the doctor, I hope to get that professional's opinion, not necessarily the opinion of a back-end model that they're using. And then finally, perhaps most sci-fi of all, how do we make sure that AI doesn't kill us? When you walk, actually, think about your city, actually. Think about the city that you live in and the roads that it has built. When those roads were built, do you think that folks cared about the anthills that they went over? Probably not. I mean, here in the United States, we don't really care about mammal migration patterns that are disrupted by our roads, right? So it's not that AI needs to be evil. And if folks want to talk about this a little bit more, we can definitely dive in. It's not that AI has to be evil or has to be it's not like a Terminator, it has to exterminate all humans. But what happens if capability, right, and trust intersect, and AI is put in a position of power, like very, very powerful, right? What happens if the military uses AI? What happens if AI is used to choose who can vote or not, or who can become a citizen or not? These are all things that are existential crises for us. What happens if someone uses AI, just one person uses AI to become a dictator? It is totally possible. There's research being done. And Catherine, I'm happy to send this out so you can send it to the folks at the call. There's research being done now on how AI can be used as sleeper agents, right? So you develop AI, you bide your time, and then you switch something on, and AI starts executing on a hidden goal. All in all, we're just not on track for a good AI future. A couple of weeks ago, Mark Zuckerberg spent hundreds of millions of dollars capturing just a handful of AI researchers from his competitors. The AI Safety Institute here in the United States has a budget of $10 million annually. And that is a very, very small drop in the bucket, considering the amount of resources and money that AI development gets. Perhaps most worryingly of all, no one really knows how AI work. You might have heard that AI is a black box. It's true. Not me and not Joshua Bengio, who won the Turing Award. So basically like an Emmy for AI research. He can't explain why AI works certain ways. No one can. Because ultimately, if you guys have heard of neural networks, it's kind of like a brain, a human brain. And we've done a ton of research on the human brain, and yet we still don't know the details of how it really functions. There's a lot to go into there. So when people ask, or when you run into this in your day-to-day, how does AI work? It's a probabilistic model that is trying to make different connections. And that's why if you go on ChatGPT, you can give it the same input 10 times, and you might get 10 different outputs. Institutions move slowly, as mentioned. Government just moves very, very slowly. And this is a technology that is moving at breakneck speed. It's important to note also that there's a lot of incentives for the government to not regulate AI safety, or excuse me, AI. Some of those incentives include the fact that AI companies are carrying the American economy right now. If you look up the S&P 500, I believe the top seven of the top 10 are all AI first. It's your Google, it's your NVIDIA, it's your Meta. So why slow down something that is, again, carrying the economy? Then, of course, you have the China angle, which is something that our government has been very, very focused on. How do we win the AI race against China? So it's not just that government moves slowly, and there seems to be very little interest at the federal level in regards to AI safety. When the big beautiful bill was signed into law, there was a provision added that would have stopped states from developing their own AI safety legislation for 10 years. That was stripped out at the very last minute, thankfully. But going back to the other slide that I showed about the video, if that's how far videos have gone in 2 years, imagine how far AI can develop in 10 years, and states would not be able to do anything about it in regards to transparency, accountability, equity, etc. Last thing I'll leave you with here. I did a little bit of research, and I found that the percentage chance that you crash on a plane, that a plane crashes, is 0.00000, I believe it's 1%. When asked if AI is an existential threat, the median AI expert said that there's a 10% chance that it will cause human extinction. One thing I want you guys to all think about is if you're boarding a plane and you talk to an engineer and you talk to a pilot, right? And you talk to the flight attendant, and the median answer is that there's a 10% chance that that plane crashes, knowing that typically it's 0.0000001%. Do you still board that flight? 10% is huge. If I had the 10% chance of winning the lottery, I'd be buying 17 tickets right now. That's a massive chance. So all of this might lead to an intelligence explosion. If AI is as good at most things as most folks, then it might lead to just AI becoming better and better and better. Why? Because these companies are focusing on AI coding. Coding is very, very good. Let me flip that around. AI is very, very good at coding. It's a lot of math. It's not perfect, And I'm not here to say that everyone should be replaced, coders should be replaced or anything like that, right? By no means is it perfect, but it does show a ton of promise. What happens if it starts actually replacing AI researchers? That's where we get recursive self-improvement. Think about the last piece of feedback that you've gotten, either in your career or through your personal life. How long did it take you to implement that feedback? Well, AI has a near instant feedback loop. It doesn't sleep. It doesn't get distracted. It doesn't need to eat. There's no PTO, right? There's no maternity leave, paternal leave. So think of a system that is just constantly working and constantly getting better simply because it's experimenting, it's seeing the results of those experiments and tweaking the experiment to reach a certain goal. So much so that the idea of superintelligence just isn't as sci-fi as it once was. And if you think that this is sci-fi, please, I would love to have an open conversation about it. Because again, none of this is written in stone, right? But something that I like to bring up is 5 years ago, would you imagine sitting in on an AI safety demo or AI safety conversation? Probably not, you know? AI in 2020 wasn't really a talking point. And now we are actually having our livelihoods threatened. Simply because we're running a little bit low on time. I apologize. I've been quite verbose today. I'm just going to keep going. Skip that last slide. This is the kind of future that we're on track for. We're on track for an arms race. In fact, we are in an arms race with China already, based off of the administration's rhetoric. It's already having an economic impact. It's having an environmental impact as well. There's a lot of research being done on how data centers are scooping up resources from the communities where they're placed. It's having social impacts. I'm not sure if you guys have seen the news of the rash of suicides that are prompted by AI because folks who need mental support start leaning on AI chatbots too much. It's already having political impacts as well. I mean, if you look at the White House official Twitter account, they use AI-generated images all the time. So what happens when at the very top, AI image generation is something that is normalized? All in all, things can get pretty wild pretty quickly. So I'm going to take a break from talking, drink some water. Any questions or comments that I can help address? Sounds like no. Maybe there's something in the chat.
Yeah, Brianna asked, I'm sorry, she commented that this reminds me so much of the people that tried to warn us about COVID before it became a pandemic.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine, for calling that out. And Brianna, thanks for the comment. Humanity has a really nasty habit of waiting too long before being proactive. The fact of the matter is that we have to be proactive about this because, again, it doesn't even have to get to AGI. We are seeing harm today, right? We are literally seeing harm today with people committing suicide, with people, students cheating their way through the school because they use ChatGPT. We got to change our educational system, right? The harm is so clear. Predictive policing has a massive amount of research done on the problems with predictive policing and how that actually institutionalizes bias, right? It adds an extra layer to that bias. So it's very, very interesting that you bring up COVID because hopefully we don't have to get to the AI equivalent of a pandemic to do something about this, right? And this actually connects to a discussion question that I'll have for you guys in a minute. And then we have I have an AI environmental impact resource page I've been working on. Fantastic, Victor. Thanks for sharing. I'll take a look at it.
And Andres, Sabrina asked if she can put up the slide you skipped. And Sabrina, I'll be sharing this out afterwards too. Um, okay.
Yes, I believe it was this one.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then Nate, you have your hand up. So if you'd like to come off mute, please do so.
I guess my question is, 'cause I agree with where you seem to be going here with that we need to legislate and regulate AI. It's having tremendously horrible impacts now. I guess I don't what I don't understand is why we have to go straight to superhuman computer killing us all. Because that also feels like buying into the same um, marketing model that the people who have invested all the money in here are trying to push, is that it buys into the idea that this is all inevitable. And I don't, most of the technology seems pretty mid at this point, right? It is hard to but it is having enough negative effects that we can talk about that meaningfully now without going to Hal directly, if that makes sense.
It does, yes. So if I understand correctly, why even talk about existential risk if there are very real risk and existential risk is theoretical? And further, does talking about existential risk actually buy into what these companies are trying to do, which is say that this is just an inevitability, right? I think that's a really, really excellent point, and it's worth calling out that all of this, apart from what we're seeing today in regards to what AI is doing, all of this is theoretical. Absolutely, right? As I mentioned, there's totally a future that AGI does not come about, and maybe there's a limit. There's a limit to the cognitive load that it can have, right? We don't know that quite yet because we have not reached that limit. And every time that we have seemed to hit a limit, AI seems to be like a river drifting through rocks, right? Instead of like hitting at a wall. So why even talk about the existential risk in the first place? So two main reasons that I think it's still really important. First and foremost, the short-term risk is very real and there, and it is getting talked about a lot. In fact, there's a lot more now that, unfortunately, I think it's a little bit too late, but there is some attorneys general that are working with OpenAI to make sure that they can diminish the amount of harm they do for young folks who are having suicidal ideations. So that's a step in the right direction. Is it enough? We'll have to see, excuse me. But for the broader concept here, why talk about something that may or may not happen and is an existential threat, right? I want to show you guys this graph. It's a little bit difficult to not go too far into this, so please bear with me. But this graph basically tests specifically for AI R&D. How long can a AI work on a task by itself, aka autonomously? And the main thing that we're trying to look at here is, well, if you can work on think of a task that you yourself can complete in 30 minutes, that's fairly simple, right? That might be sending out a couple of emails, et cetera, et cetera. Think of a task that you can complete in 2 hours. That's a little bit more complex. What happens if an AI can start autonomously working successfully, completing tasks that take 40 hours or 80 hours, right? A work week or 2 work weeks. Then we start seeing strategic planning coming about, right? If strategic planning comes about, then goal acquisition is going to be highlighted. And then we might get into real big problems in regards to AI capability because it's going to be able to have much longer plans now that it's able to work on something autonomously for hours, weeks, days on end. So yes, I think it's extremely important to note that AGI is theoretical. With that said, companies are trying to get there now. Will they? We don't know. but we think the probability might be high enough that it's worth the public openly discussing. So hopefully that answers your question, Nate. I do think that there's probably much more to talk about there. More than happy to communicate with you about that. But yeah, I hope that addressed some of your concern.
And Andres, I know you're only on section 1, and I can save maybe questions for later. I do have a question asked anonymously about what advice do you have for someone in the workplace that sees AI as an inevitability and is fully adopting and supporting it?
What advice do I have? I guess it would just depend on on the context here, as in, like how to talk about this stuff with someone who sees AI as an whatever. Or how do, like, I am someone who sees it as inevitable, so how should I think about it? Either way, very difficult for anything to be inevitable. And it is, I think, going back to Nate's point, it is worth noting that AI companies have a financial invested interest in getting people to adopt AI, right? And getting people to use AI. Notice how throughout this entire conversation, we have not talked about should you use AI. What we're here to talk about is the risks and hopefully give you just a general idea of how to think about AI in very broad terms instead of like very specifically use AI for this, use AI for that. So I know that's not the best answer. I just don't really have enough context for that question, but very little is inevitable in the world, and very little is inevitable in the AI space.
Yeah,
So,
I think it really comes from, and especially for, public companies, private companies even, who are really pushing the adoption of AI for use, as teams are downsizing, the ones that are left are encouraged to like build AI agents, right? And if they don't, they're out of there. So I think that was more the context. And Andres, I also know that you have a lot more to get to, so we can answer. There's another question in the chat too, but if you need to hold on, that's fine.
yeah, I think the question in the chat from Kim is quite an interesting one. I would guess that AI would need its own instance, like think of ChatGPT 5. You would need your own instance of that model for it to be culturally relevant to different indigenous populations. Simply because as it stands, like it will have like a very superficial level understanding of what you're trying to talk about and how to like you quote unquote speak the languages. But I'm guessing it wouldn't be able to do it very well. So, okay. Let's keep this trend going. We got, correct me if I'm wrong, Catherine, we have about 10 minutes left.
That's correct. Yes, 10 minutes.
Right. Okay. I don't know if you guys remember, but there's 4 different sections. So I'm so sorry that we're not going to be able to get to everything today. I do want to show you how, going back to that very real risk that exists right now, I want to show you how easy it is to create scam and fraud content with AI. Scams have been around for a very long time, basically since there were 2 people living on the world, right? But AI is being able to scale that content massively. So I would love to get participation from one of you. If you feel comfortable, please drop your LinkedIn profile in the chat. What we'll do is I'm just going to put it here, and it'll find your picture and a brief description, like a brief summary of your page. And we're going to use that to try to create scam content. This is not being used anywhere else. This is all within a very closed sandbox. So Brianna, thank you very much for raising your hand. Let's see if the model can find Brianna. From Winfield, Kansas. AmeriCorps member, Cowley County Resource Coordinator, dedicated in increasing digital literacy. Does this look about right? Sounds about right. Yes, it does. Okay, cool. So let's use her page to send her a scam email. So with the click of a button, I use this data that I scraped up, and I'm able to immediately build an email that basically, in cybersecurity, it's called social engineering, right? I am trying to trick her to trusting me so that she engages with me and gives me her info, right? So pretty good email. You know, the email itself is looks real. It's a name. It's got a picture, and then of course I might click in and actually try to see, well, what's this guy Mike about? He had the decency to research my work. Oh, I haven't signed in. Let me sign in. And I just got, right? All of that was fake. The email was fake. The landing page was fake. LinkedIn was fake. And they now have my email. Excuse me, my password. Again, phishing has always existed, but 5, 10 years ago, if I wanted to send a scam email, I had to look up someone, I had to find someone that was like Brianna, and then read through their info, and then manually type it out. What happens if just using one image, I want to make an image of Brianna sitting in jail? Now, I don't know if Brianna's ever been to jail or not, but I can use this and send it to her employer or send it to her family. And they actually just upgraded the model. Back in 2020, or they used to have a model from 2023, and you could see like what we call digital artifacts. So examples of issues within the photo that might lead you to believe that it was an AI picture. Victor, that's an excellent point. AI agents are now allowing hackers to scale human engineering scams. AI agents are autonomous. And that is another reason that we are worried about where AI is headed. If AI scams are this bad right now, what happens in 2 or 3 years' time when AI scams are everywhere because AI agents are managing groups of AI agents who are actually producing this content? Going back to the societal issues that we'll be running into, what happens if you go online and you literally cannot trust anything that you see because AI images and videos are indistinguishable from real images and videos? It's a very, very scary world to think of. So let's use this picture to very quickly generate a video. Might take a little bit, and this is actually something that is very new with this model as well. So I'm excited to see what it looks like. Other things to consider: what happens when politicians start using AI, or even, it doesn't even have to be politicians, right? Anyone who is trying to change public perception starts using AI. We have seen international governments use AI in their elections. We have seen AI affect conflicts in Ukraine and in Palestine. We are seeing AI being used today for ICE purposes, right? DHS. So it's relatively, easy to show like this kind of gimmicky use of pictures, etc., for AI, but the real world ramifications are already affecting us. So here's a video of Brianna.
They can't break me. I'll show them.
All of that from this picture here. So the question then becomes, and I'll stop, I think that'll be the end of the presentation for today. I will reiterate, if you guys want the rest of the presentation, or if you just want me to present for your own community, for your own folks, or you would like to be trained up to be able to talk about this stuff as we do, please get in touch. Again, all of this is pro bono. There's no financial incentive here for us. We're just trying to spread this message as much as possible. What is the message? That AI might get very crazy very, very quickly, but AI is already crazy today, and we need to start doing things today. We need to start involving our communities and making sure that they are producing their own ideas of how they want to interact with AI instead of just accepting what is thrown to us by Silicon Valley, right? So I will be attending both I actually don't know if it'll be me, it might be my co-founder, Chinglin, but one of us will be at the event on October 8th in Seattle for Dell Network. And then since I'm in Chicago, I will be at the NDIA event next year, and I'll be presenting a workshop there that will be much more focused on digital equity and inclusion. So look forward to hopefully connecting with you guys there. And if I don't, please feel free to just send me an email or LinkedIn message. And with that, with 3 minutes to spare, thank you everyone for making the time to chat with me today. I hope that this was helpful. I hope that this was at least a little bit insightful and got you thinking through some AI paradigms.
Thank you, Andres, so much. We've talked a few times leading up to this call, and to kind of piggyback on what Nate was speaking about earlier, I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, oh, it feels like very alarmist, but the fact is, AI grows exponentially. And I think the example with the video that was just made a couple years ago versus now, it just shows you how fast things can move and get out of hand. And if you're part of the NDIA listserv, you'll see that the call came out for the sign-on letter with Governor Newsom about the recent suicides from AI companions. So people are being affected. People are losing jobs, and what does that look like in the future? I think we all have a part to play. So please reach out to Andres for more information and how his organization can support you and your organization. And also further up in the chat, I dropped some ways to connect with DELN. I won't do the whole closeout because I know people are jumping. We might not have a lot of time. If you're local to the Seattle or Washington State area, please join us on October 8th. I'll follow up with this recording and any other supporting materials or documents next week. All right.
One last thing, I put in the chat, someone asked about next steps, action items for folks. Very important point, and I'm so sorry that we did not have time to go through it in detail, but we do have a really nice website where you can put in how you would like to get involved, how much time you have. If you have less than an hour, what can you do? If you want to be involved in AI safety full time, what you can do, how you can get trained up, etc. So feel free to check that out. And again, please feel free to reach out to me. Happy to help any way I can. And that's that. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Catherine, for having me.